All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 108 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Duper Flex, and the co-host with the most, Drew at Doctor_PRA. Guys, how you doing?
Good. Happy to be back. It's been a few weeks, so I am ready to get rolling.
Yeah, Bill has been if you see, Bill is nice and tan. He spent a little time in
I'm Irish. I don't
Miami
tan.
with all the video girls and Will Smith, and I don't know who else hangs out in Miami, but he was with all of them partying it up. Drew, how you doing, man?
Still recovering from Monday night, but otherwise glad to be back. Yeah, hard to believe it's been 3 weeks, Bill. Feels like so much has happened, and it feels like it was just yesterday we did this.
Yeah. If you don't know what Drew's talking about, big time Buffalo Bills fan. He got beat by the I shouldn't say his team got beat by the three pass Mac Jones led New England Patriots. But Bill, we don't know nothing about that. Our team's won, baby. Our team's won. We don't know nothing about this losing thing. Drew's out here team losing games. The Lions just taking teams to the woodshed now, winning games. I mean, Bill,
play.
Hey, listen, I'm going to call that taking somebody to the woodshed when you're 10-1 going into that game. But Bill, how do you feel, man? Not going to go undefeated this season. The 0 is now stricken from the win column, and there is a 1 in its place. So how do you feel, man?
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to know that they're not going to do another offer. I've lived through that before, and I don't want to live through that again. And the fact that we made it into double digits, starting to get a little nervous. So yeah, happy that it's over, and sorry, short logic.
By the way, Bill does not mean that sorry, because beating a division rival for the first one always makes it just a little bit sweeter, just a little bit tastier. But yeah, I was watching Red Zone. They pull up to that Lions game. Lions are in there. They're ready to win this thing, and you go, they can't do it, man. It's Jared Goff. It's the Lions. They're not. And then boom, Jared Goff just throwing dimes all over the place, winning games.
It was kind of funny because, I have the group of buddies. We always have our group chat going, and all of a sudden, like right when the touchdown was scored right at the end, I get like texts, "We're going to the Super Bowl," like all that kind of stuff. Just, of course, mocking because we,
of course,
are just so jaded as fans. But yeah, it was our only excitement for the year. So there you have it.
Well, it's funny because I love. I follow quite a few people from the Detroit area, and they're talking about when the parade is going to come through for the win, and but it's good, man. You never, no matter what the team's record is, you never want to see it in in the win column. So the Lions took it to the limit. They had a lot of people worried as well, and I'm glad to see them win. I just wanted to shout out Bill and his Detroit Lions, because they had a couple of heartbreaks this year. They kind of lost on a BS penalty to the Ravens. They tied the Steelers. They had some almost wins at certain parts, and it's good to see them crack it. So, all right. So Detroit Lions hour is now over. Hopefully Drew had enough time to recover from the sting of Buffalo's defeat. And I want to switch things up a little bit, and we're going to do our shout out for our eliminator early so that we can do it, and it's more so that I don't forget. So got to shout out Dave Turnow at Who Is Dave T. Dave, I'm sorry, you made it far, man. You made it to the final 5, but unfortunately, you got to go. We got a star-studded cast still left, including our girl Lindsay Kennedy, who has pretty much been dominating this thing, but she's been
and is number 26 in SFB.
Number 26, and I want to shout her out because she is first in the Timeline OG League. Her team is 12-1. She is just lapping the competition. She is number 26, 26 out of what, like 2,000 people? I don't even remember.
Yeah, it's like 2,000.
It's like 2,000. It's over 2,000 people in Scott Fishbowl. I thought I was going to be able to toot my horn because I was 79, and then I saw her put her 26 on.
Are you really 79, dude?
Dude, if I'm
That's
lying,
awesome.
I'm
Congrats.
By the way, nobody.
There's lucky and
more
good,
surprised
Bill. There's
than me.
lucky and good.
Listen, I would rather be lucky than good. I have said that to multiple people about where I'm at currently in Scott Fishbowl. So
that's awesome, man.
I thought I was going to toot my horn, but then Lindsay, she threw the 26 up there, and I said, "Well, I got to bow to greatness." I'm like,
step back, yeah.
Yes, 79 is one thing, but 26 that is elite company, and so I want to shout her out because she's got the golden touch. Everything that I have seen her in, that she is in with me, she has dominated so far.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You better prepare to be on the show pretty soon. She's got
about
a month until she's
Lindsay is a little shy, and but she committed to doing this if she wins SFB.
I told her, I mentioned that because she threw out the fact that she was number 26, and I said, all right, I just want you to remember that when you win this thing, you're coming on the fantasy timeline first. We're gonna have the exclusive with the champ. And
she's gonna big time us.
No, she is not. I'm going to be on her. She is going to be on this show first. She's not going to be chilling with Matthew Berry or hanging out with the fantasy. No, we get her first. Then she can hobnob with Stephania Bell and whoever else, the guy
who's also doing really well.
Also like top 10.
Yeah, she's like there's some like monster accounts up top.
Some heavy hitters
did really well this year.
Frank Stanfield from CBS Fantasy is up there. He does a podcast on CBS Fantasy. There's an Ben Gretsch who's ex CBS Fantasy. Like there are some heavy hitters at the top this year. So she can hobnob with them after she does the timeline. She's gonna do her low rent show, and then she's gonna go on to Stardom. So I told her that. I said you got to come on the show. So
remember us, Lindsay.
Yeah, please remember us on your way up.
I'm gonna make her remember. If there's one thing, she can hang out with all the celebrities afterwards, but she'll probably be on an episode of Psych with James Roday. I mean, she'll have it all, but she's gonna do this first. So shout out to Lindsay and everybody else who's still alive in the fantasy.
Yeah, and good luck.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, we love it because it just does so much for Toys for Tots and all the other charities that supports, and that's why we love it. We don't care where we finish because it's about something much bigger, but it's always a lot of fun to talk about. So let's get into this good, this bad, and this ugly from this past week. Who wants to start us off? Bill, you've been gone for a while. Why don't you start us off?
A little rusty. Yeah, so my good is Javonte Williams. This is the first time you really got the the bulk of the touches with Melvin being out, and got 23 carries for over 100 yards, 9 targets, 6 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. So I think he was the highest scoring running back this week, at least in the OG league he was. So it's good to see that he's getting volume, which you expect in that offense, right? Especially when you're not splitting it with someone. So he's kind of showing what a lot of people hoped he was going to be, that he can kind of carry the load. So yeah, it was, I mean, he didn't look like ridiculously amazing, but he looked like a good starting running back. So, and 9 targets, that's pretty awesome.
And I don't want to talk too much about Javonte because we are going to talk about him a little bit later in the show.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, Javonte. Drew, I think you're going to need to add to the 101 if you want Javonte now. Just say hashtag just saying,
That's not what I heard when we made this conversation 2 weeks ago. I heard I was going to get more than Javonte for the 101. I waited.
Right. But Javonte didn't have it all to himself 2 weeks ago. You saw just the tip of the iceberg, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens during the offseason, what kind of upgrades the Broncos may or may not make to the team. So, like I said, I don't want to get too into it because we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, I like that one. I watched that game, and I mean, Javonte is just, he's a man. Drew, why don't you hit us up with your good?
I heard recently that we're a pro Deontay Johnson show, so I figured I'd,
True.
I towed the line this week, and I'd call his number. 11 targets, which is great to see. 8 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Which, who cares what's happening?
It's like every week.
Yeah, it's been great to see him, continue and pick up. And I think last year some people were concerned about drops and things like that, but I saw somebody tweet earlier this week as well. I forget who they were comparing him to, but another maybe it was even Calvin Ridley or somebody like that at this point, but. There was somebody that was pretty high up there, the consensus top 10 receiver. And then they were asking, why is there such a big gap between them and Deontay? And I think that's a great question when you look at the consistency that he's had. So I picked him up in a redraft league. Thrilled that I did. Wish I had him in more dynasty, but yeah, really good to see that connection. And doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball at this point, it doesn't look like. So what a good week for him, and love seeing that happen.
So I just looked up the target leaders in the NFL through week 13, and he missed a game. So if you want to look at average targets per game, only Cooper Kupp averages more targets per game. That's 0.4 targets more per game. And there's only like 5 players averaging 10 targets or more. And it's Cooper Kupp, Tyreek, Keenan Allen, Deontay, and Devonta. So, I mean, up in the air with some pretty heavy hitters. So, does that change next year? I'm not real sure. Like, what do you think with, like, if Ben's gone, which we fully expect, right? Like, is it the scheme or is it Ben?
I think it's a little bit of Ben, but I also think this really depends on how they decide to address the quarterback position. If they go draft a guy, I think maybe they try to open it up, get a young quarterback, maybe to throw a little bit more downfield to guys like Chase Claypool. But if they go, you've heard like the Jimmy Garoppolo route and stuff like that. I mean, do you think Jimmy Garoppolo looks at a guy who is as consistent as Deontay Johnson and just decides he's not going to throw that guy anymore? I mean, look at what Deebo Samuel has done this year. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo found a guy. He found a guy he really likes, and that guy gets targets. And I mean, it even happened this week with my good, where Deebo's out. Jimmy Garoppolo found a guy he likes, and he targets the guy. So if you're going one of those, I think it all depends on the route they decide to fill the quarterback position with. But yeah, I mean, some of it is Ben in the fact that, I mean, can Ben even throw farther than 15 yards anymore? I mean, it doesn't look like it, but I mean, Deontay Johnson is also just very good. Bill,
Yeah.
who got him in the OG league? Who got him?
Us maybe.
Oh, man. We made so many good picks. I feel like we talk about one of our picks every week. Not even playing.
You do.
Go ahead.
You do.
But what do you think, Drew? Is it the system? Is it Ben? Is it something else that is leading to kind of Deontay Johnson's
It could be a
greatness?
mixture of those things for now, but I think Deontay's done enough that he's shown. I mean, I forget what it was. He's getting so much separation. His average distance between him and his defender when he catches the ball is ridiculously high. I don't care if you have a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or somebody who's got a big arm. They're still going to find him. I mean, you look at a guy like Cole Beasley on the Bills. You know, there are games where he still gets a ton of targets because it's just the right thing to do, right? You have a good player, you're going to play to their strengths. Najee is going to be another year in. So, they could go and maybe slide a little bit further back to some of the smash mouth football that they've been known for. But ultimately, I think he's proven enough already that whoever they have under center next year is going to find him. When it comes down to crunch time, when they're trying to make a drive, they're going to find him. And he may not average double-digit targets next year, but I don't think they drop precipitously. I don't see him getting fewer than maybe 7 or 8 targets a game on average next year, even if they get a more run-heavy offense and they have a quarterback that wants to look for bigger plays here and there. Maybe they lean on play action a little bit more. So, if somebody's concerned about that and they're going to, try to get out of Deontay now thinking they're going to sell high, yes, please.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that we kind of talked about 2 players back to back in Javonte Williams and Deontay Johnson, where we're kind of like, man, we want to see what upgrades they're going to make to the offense in order to maybe unlock these guys even a little bit more than where we already have them. It's going to be a fun offseason with those teams. But I mentioned it while we were talking about Deontay. Jimmy Garoppolo's main man, at least for this past week. George Kittle, 9 receptions, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. And just in case that wasn't enough for you, he added 5 rushing yards just to show people he can. So, man, we kind of, I think for the most part, been down on George Kittle this year. There were injuries, and then there was just kind of like, it was the Debo show for the majority of the season. Debo's nursing a groin injury. He's not in. And then it's okay, well, is it going to be Brandon Ayuk? Is it going to be a heavier dose of Elijah Mitchell? No, it was George Kittle. And he just wanted to remind everybody about why he can be in the conversation for tight end 1 if he is used to that extent. It's amazing. Last week he had 9 receptions, as I mentioned, on 12 targets. The previous 3 weeks combined, he had 10 receptions on 13 targets. So it just shows you that if you give that guy the ball, big things can happen. And we talk about spots like Denver with their wide receiver core and Javonte and Noah Fant. And we talk about Carolina with their wide receiver core, places that need a quarterback. And this is supposed to get turned over to Trey Young, which I think it will be. But, man, what if they had saved those picks and maybe went in on an Aaron Rodgers, get a hometown boy back in town, or Deshaun Watson, or, some of these other guys that might become available. I mean, Debo, Ayuk, he's been down for most of the season, but man, he's had a couple of games. Now you have George Kittle just showing. If there was a quarterback there, an elite quarterback in San Francisco, man, that could be a thing. So,
what if Kirk Cousins goes to San Francisco?
First of all, the world would explode because everybody expects Trey Lance to be the guy next year. But I also think that is Kyle Shanahan's dream of all dreams, because he was trying to get Kirk Cousins there when he first got the coaching job. And Minnesota slid in and gave him a fully guaranteed contract. And that was that. So, I think deep down Kyle Shanahan would just jump for joy. But it's going to be Trey Lance next year, most likely, and that's going to be very interesting because the upside is high, but we've said that about a lot of guys, and the upside doesn't always hit. So it'll be fun to watch, that's for sure. I'm going to get into my bad here. Darnell Mooney, he had been dominating the last couple of weeks. We said, hey man, maybe Darnell is turning into that dude. And yes, people are going to tell me it's a bad weather game. It's there. We saw that on Monday night. The weather can really, change a game drastically. But 5 receptions for 27 yards. If you told me Darnell Mooney got 5 receptions, I would have said, he went 5 for 50, maybe 5 for 55, something like that. But 5 for 27. Whew. A lot of people still put him in the lineup just thinking he was going to get a massive amount of targets, and it did not pay off. So Darnell Mooney is my bad. Bill, were you going to say something? Oh, you put
No,
your
I
hand
was
up.
just saying I was
Me
one of
too.
those people that put him in.
I got you. So you were one. Yeah, I mean, listen, I told a lot of people Sunday morning, hey, Darnell Mooney or this guy, and in most situations, I went with Darnell Mooney. So I was there with you. I thought Darnell would be okay even with the bad weather, but it didn't happen this week. Drew, why don't you hit us with your bad for this week?
It hurts. It hurts. I chose Dawson Knox from Monday night. A couple of key drops, which killed a couple of drives, and then really the bad for a guy that's as important as he is. Last drive the Bills had false start on a already long third down, made it even longer, which made it almost impossible to convert and extend the drive. So, that was tough to watch, and it's not what you expect from somebody who's worked his way into being an integral part of the offense here. So I know he's probably down on himself, and I don't want to pile on, but that hurts to watch that, especially after watching a guy, was it 4 or 5 weeks ago, throw a touchdown or throw a 2-point conversion with a dislocated finger or something. It's like, I got to remember those things too, but that one hurts personally. That was really bad in those situations.
So I have just a quick question and just a little, maybe one-line answer from both of you guys. Is Dawson Knox going to be next year's Robert Tonyan, where we get hyped up by a pretty good year, we draft him higher than maybe we should, and then we end up being disappointed because we put too many expectations on him?
I'll say that's actually a pretty good question.
Well, thank you.
I think you're welcome. I think that it could be, because there's talks about Ertz going to Buffalo before the season. I mean, granted, Knox has really performed and probably above expectations. He was an athletic guy coming out, so I mean, there was a chance that things clicked and he could become what he's showing now. Will consistency be an issue? Maybe, but like, I can't see him falling flat. And I don't necessarily, I mean, if your expectations are that he's going to grow into a top 4 tight end, then I think the answer is yes, right? But like, if your expectations are reasonable and maybe him being somewhere in that 7 to 12 range, I think that you should be pretty safe in that. But if they kind of continue and add a second tight end, then I'm going to be a little more concerned. So that's more than one sentence, but
That's cool. What do you think, Drew? You're the fan. I think you have the maybe better insight of or the best insight of all of us. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a plausible comp, looking at, they both got elite quarterbacks. I think the tough part for Tonyan is that he seemed to be the second option, right? It was Devontae, him, and then anybody else that could get on the field this year. I think the expectations should be a little bit lower for Knox because there's so many weapons in Buffalo. There's so many different ways that they can move the ball, especially if they add a running game next year. So I think, like Bill said, you temper your expectations. I would, as a fan, I definitely want to draft him early in that. I'd love to have him as my tight end 2 next year. If I go an elite tight end early, but if I wait, I don't mind to mix him with another guy. If I end up with Knox and you pick up any other guy that you want as kind of a streaming option. So I think it is all about the expectation. What do you hope to get out of him? But yeah, if you're drafting him as, hey, this guy has a 1 in 1,000 chance of being a top 4 tight end, I think you'll be disappointed.
All right, there we go. So that's good, and I love when Bill strokes my ego and tell me I have good questions. So that's also a plus. Bill, why don't you hit us with your bad this week?
So my bad, and I hope Short Logic exited already. It's the Vikings, man. They should have, you go into Detroit. It was in Detroit, and pretty bad team. Defense isn't good. Offense isn't good. You don't have DeAndre Swift. There's a lot of things in your favor, and you're in the playoff hunt. And for them to come in and kind of just poo-poo, like, I don't know if there's other players hurt other than Dalvin, but like, that's a Madison, covered admirably. So like, I don't necessarily think there was this ridiculously major drop at that position. So I know Thielen got hurt, so that kind of hurt, but Short Logic just says unsubscribe. It's just disappointing. Like, I mean, I love Kirk Cousins, Michigan State guy, and it just seems like, he's one of those guys, like, you don't mind him on your team, but then you mind him on your team kind of thing. And like, he's a good enough quarterback that other people will be like, if you get rid of him, it's a huge downgrade to like the next person. But I just don't think he's that guy. He just makes those bad throws when you really need him to make a good throw. And so I just guess he's just not super clutch. And that's my biggest concern with him. So I think the Vikings this week are my bad.
Yeah, it's funny because this is starting to make the rounds now on Twitter, and Kirk Cousins is QB 8 on the season, so it's funny. We have always been, besides being a pro Deontay Johnson podcast, we have always been a pro Kirk Cousins podcast, at least for fantasy. And it's funny because you made a good point about Kirk Cousins. It seems that he's good enough to win games, but he's not good enough to like kind of get you to the promised land. But I don't know if Kirk Cousins had a better head coach. This is what I'm trying to get out here. If maybe those odds wouldn't increase a little bit. Mike Zimmer is probably a very nice guy. He's a defensive-minded coach. He's old school. He wants to run the ball, beat you up on defense, and that's how he wants to win games. But teams don't really win like that anymore. That's not the way the NFL plays anymore. You have to air it out. Yes, you need to have some defense, and yes, you need to have some semblance of a running game, but we don't call the Bucks a Super Bowl contender this year because, I mean, listen, I don't think anyone predicted the rise of Leonard Fournette, but we didn't have them as Super Bowl contenders before the year started because of their amazing run game and their amazing defense. We said it's Tom Brady, it's those pass catching weapons. They have a good shot of making the Super. Same thing with the Chiefs, even though their defense has been the reason why I think they've won 5 straight. But before the season, we look at the teams with great quarterbacks and great pass catching weapons, and we go, those are the teams that we give the highest Super Bowl odds to. And I don't, I wonder if they had a different style head coach, if maybe we would look at Kirk Cousins maybe a little bit more favorably. Not a lot. I don't think we would ever say Kirk Cousins is a for sure Super Bowl caliber coach, but maybe we would, maybe we would feel a little bit differently about it. So I like that one. I like I like you getting your Lions in there again, Bill. Good for you. I'm proud of you. Ugly. Hit us with your ugly, Bill.
Yeah, I gotta find it.
It's so
I'm pretty
ugly
sure
you can't even spit it out.
I was like trying to get my tabs situated, and it was just a whole debacle. Sorry about that. My ugly was, and it's not because of his performance, but my ugly is Mac Jones, just because he had 3 pass attempts, and so it's ugly for fantasy. You know what I mean? Like he's a kid who's showing like he gets it, and he's able to fit that system, and you feel pretty good. Like, okay, well, in Superflex, he's my QB2. I don't hate it, kind of feeling, as a rookie, and then you see this, and it's just like, I get it. The weather was terrible. However, we're in week 13. There's still 5 more weeks, 4 more weeks of fantasy, so that's a third of our season in fantasy, that there's the potential that we see something like this. And, just because Belichick, he just does what he wants to do. And there's not really any other coach that would allow that sort of, or even consider that. So like, that's my concern, that, you're going to have a ceiling that's limited, potentially in certain matchups, and figuring out when those matchups are, good luck, right? Because we never know. We never know. It's like trying to figure out their running backs. So yeah, it's more of an ugly situation as opposed to an ugly performance per se.
I'll let Drew go last at this one, because while you were talking, I saw him having flashbacks to the game, so I'm going to let him recover a little bit.
Sorry, Drew.
That game was so amazing. At one point, they ran 32 straight running plays. Like, who does that? And I saw someone on Twitter, and I say this every week. I wish I could remember, but apparently before the game, he was being interviewed, and he was wearing a Navy face mask, and then he goes out and runs the ball 32 straight times at one point. I mean, Bill Belichick just said, I know the weather's going to be bad, so I'm going to run. And that's what he did. Mac Jones threw the ball 3 times. Like, I don't think.
And one going into the fourth quarter. Like, and he threw 2 in a row. It was like, what? Like, the world went crazy after that second one in a row.
I don't think you will ever see a quarter, and I don't care what the weather conditions are. A few years ago, many years ago, there was a snow game in Philly, and they threw it more than 3 times. And I mean, the snow was probably 4 or 5 inches on the field. They were kicking up snow every time they ran, and they still threw it more than 3 times. I mean, Bill Belichick will probably never have another rookie quarterback again. And so I can't imagine another coach having not only the stones, but the just general authority to just do what they want and throw the ball 3 times. So I think this is a record that will stand for maybe the rest of our lives and the rest of NFL history. So, Drew, I don't know if you want to add anything else, or if you just want us to move on.
I appreciate Bill putting Mac Jones in the ugly. It's a nice gesture, Bill. But no, that was tough. And yeah, it's you go for 20 years of Belichick and Brady and the Pats just dominating the AFC East, and you think, okay, Brady moves on. You see last season, and maybe we'll get a couple years of respite here. But kudos to Belichick for this rebuild in a year, right? I mean, he did what all of us as dynasty managers wish we could do. Take a team that was underperforming, ragtag group of players, and in a season and change, turn it into a number 1 team again. Total credit there. And as much as I want the Bills to go to the Super Bowl and win one, you look at the odds now, and I guess the odds are on Belichick and Brady meeting this year, which would be awesome. Epic. It would be. So it's one of those things where you almost want it to be like a best of 3 series or something. One game just wouldn't be enough. But yeah, such a testament to the guy and his consistency, his commitment to the process, and kudos to Mac Jones for coming in as a rookie and putting his ego aside. And sure, being drafted he was the 5th quarterback drafted out of this class or something. So he's already knocked down a peg there. Watching these other guys go, and what a chip on his shoulder, and to come in and go with the program, team first attitude, right? Which all those things fit the Belichick model, the Patriot way. So, no surprise in hindsight to see the process work out when you have a guy like Belichick that can get guys. And you look at some of their acquisitions over the free agency too. It's like, why are you spending so much money on these tight ends? What are you doing? Where are you putting this money on? Matt Judon and some of these guys. And it's like, you watch a lot of them just pay off week after week, and there's something there, and it'll never be the same for anybody that comes out of that tree. You watch all the players and the coaches that work for Belichick. None of them have repeated the same type of success or replicated anything close. There's something special about that guy and that organization. So you have to respect it as much as it hurts, and you hope that as a Bills fan, you hope that they pick up and do what they can do for the last few games of the season, put themselves in a position to be in the playoffs, and once you hit the playoffs, any given day, right? So that's what I'm banking on.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you kind of brought fantasy into the fold while you were talking about Mac Jones, because the Patriots did what almost every team should try to do, especially in Dynasty. Buy those studs. I mean, obviously the Patriots went about it in free agency, and they spent, I think, more money than any team ever had spent in NFL history in free agency. They spent like $100 million on tight ends. Which is hilarious because they don't even use those guys. They spent a ton of money on guys, you mentioned Judon, and they have put themselves in a position now with a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones. And even though he was the 5th quarterback drafted, he was a top 15 pick. So this wasn't a 3rd round guy that, is just kind of like, hey, I'm happy to be in the NFL. He was a top 15 pick. So I think there was a lot expected of him, but he did what we should all be doing. If you think, you just need a piece or 2 or 3 to get you to a championship, go out and buy him. Sometimes it doesn't work. I'm not saying it works every time, but sometimes you get the Patriots where it all comes together perfectly, and they have a real shot of doing some damage in the postseason. So it will be fun to watch. So, Drew, we'll get that bad taste out of your mouth. Tell us what your ugly is.
Man, I was watching Red Zone as well, and they spent a lot of time focusing on Andy Dalton because he kept putting the other team in the red zone with his 4 interceptions. I think he had as many tackles as he did touchdowns, which for a quarterback is never a good sign. And I think this week they've already come out and said he's not starting again. So what a way to go out with a whimper, or I guess a bang, depending on how you view it, as a stand-in. So I just hope Fields doesn't get wrecked this week, and they have to go back to him or Foles. I don't know if they sorted out even who's going to be backing up as the number 2 this week, but Dalton sure played like number 2 last week, and that was tough to watch.
Man, some coach next year is going to have a nice little team with Justin Fields and David Montgomery and Darnell Mooney. It's not going to be Matt Nagy. Andy Dalton will either be on his 3rd team in 3 years, or he will be bagging groceries at your local store.
He'll be the opposite Kurt Warner.
Yeah,
Benjamin Button version of Kurt Warner.
Right. He'll go from starting quarterback to bagging groceries. But it was brutal. I mentioned earlier I was watching it as well, and every time they went back to the Bears game, it was, Andy Dalton just threw another interception, and they're in that. That's like, what? So last year when he was the backup in Dallas, I thought it was a really good pickup because it was a starting quarterback with a lot of experience, and I mean, it was okay at times in Dallas. I would never say that we had any great moments in the Dallas Cowboy Andy Dalton era, but man, this year in Chicago has just been. I don't know if they've even had any okay times in Chicago. So yeah, it'll be Justin Fields as long as he stays healthy for the rest of the season, and next year Andy Dalton will find a new job, either in the NFL or bagging groceries. What do you think? What do you think, Bill?
About just the
Just the poo that is Andy Dalton.
Oh, I mean, yeah, he's done, right? Like,
He gone.
I mean, not much else to think about, really. I mean, he's kind of like the Nick Foles of 2020, and so like here we go. Now they got two, so like I think he's pretty much. I don't know. I mean, he's going to be a guy that Mike Glennon. He'll be playing behind Daniel Jones, or he'll be playing. Maybe Andy Dalton will be playing behind Mike Glennon. Who knows? But like all those guys are just gonna. They are where they are now, right? Like they're at the end of their careers, and there's not much hope for them. They're really just roster cloggers, except for like 14 team super flexes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got Andy Dalton in a 16-team super flex, and he even with the couple of starts he got, he still never saw the light of day on my starting lineup. So he is definitely the textbook example of break in case of emergency quarterback. I mean, I would need a lot of quarterbacks to be hurt for Andy Dalton to be a play that I would do that. So let's move on to my ugly Devonta Smith. Man, I was like, it's the Jets. Fire him up. Gardner Minshew is going to throw the ball like he just doesn't care. And by the way, he did throw the ball like he just didn't care, except all the passes went to Dallas Goedert. and he had a monster game. And Devonta Smith, 2 receptions, 15 yards against the Jets. It hurt me because I told a lot of people to fire him up, and that was not good. That was poor on my part, even though I thought the Jets. Well, I didn't think the Jets were bad. The Jets are bad, but Gardner Minshew, he found that one receiver, and man, that if you started Dallas Goedert in the league, whoo, like you did you did very all right. So, sorry, Smith. This is just another dip in your roller coaster season. He'll probably go for 9 for 105 in his next game, and I won't start him, and I'll miss that too. But yeah, it hurt me. It hurt me more because I told people to start him in a lot of situations, and he did not do that thing. So, all right, man, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's go on to the timeline and let's fire this up. So, this first one is from, we talked about it earlier, the Scott Fish Bowl. So obviously, hey, why don't we talk about a tweet that Scott Fish had at Scott Fish 24. Bringing Bill back to the conversation, because when the Lions get a win, we're gonna promote the hell out of it. Which Lions receiver are you buying more into down the stretch given the last 2 weeks? Josh Reynolds or Amon-Ra St. Brown? Bill, you were going to give us the in-depth, behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't know, so I'm going to save you for the end on this one. Drew, who you got? Drew looks like he does not want to answer this question at all. But is it Josh Reynolds or is it Amon-Ra St. Brown?
I was going to copy Bill's homework here. My gut reaction was Josh Reynolds. He's been around longer. He's a veteran. He's had increasing targets over the last few weeks. Had a big play a couple weeks ago for a long touchdown. But when I looked at it again, I'm going to change my vote to the rookie. And looking at, if you're going by volume and the idea that targets are earned, double-digit targets this week, which was huge, and of course the game winner. But 20 targets in the last 3 weeks, I think, total or something like that, which is a good sign for a young guy to earn the trust of a quarterback. I don't care how bad the quarterback is. If the quarterback likes you and you're going to get targets, that's great for fantasy, especially if you're looking, depending on what your team needs. Hopefully you're not in a place where you need a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, unless you're in one of these 14 or 16 team leagues where you have to start 3 wide receivers or something, or you got a bunch of injuries. But, if I had to pick between those two at the end of my roster, I would take St. Brown at this point.
All right. I was not going to copy Bill's work because I'm not that smart. So why am I going to even try to sound like it? Can I pick C? None of the above. I don't buy into. I don't buy into either one of them. This is what we all expected the Lions wide receiver room to be. A bunch of guys, they're going to give you a game here, they're going to give you a game there, but they're not anything that you're going to be excited about. They're not going to be anything that you're, trading draft capital to go get. I mean, I'm assuming, and I could be wrong in this, that the Lions are going to make upgrades to that wide receiver room, whether in free agency or through the draft, maybe a little of both. And I don't want neither one of these guys. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he got his first touchdown of the season last week. 7 of the 11 games he's played in, he has been under 50 yards. 7 of the 11 games he's played in, he's been under 5 receptions. Like, do I want that? Like, I mean, I feel like both of these guys are probably definitions of roster cloggers. Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown could kind of take the next step if there's a legitimate number one on the other side, but I don't want none of them. I don't buy into any of it. But Bill, hit us with the homework. Hit us with the behind the scenes. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's underwhelming. I think I would go Amon-Ra just because he's a rookie and we at least have some hope there. And if he pops, I probably trade him. Just because, as much as, I've always been a fan of Josh Reynolds. He seems to, perform when he's put out there, but it just seems like he's always going to be that fourth guy, right? I mean, he was in Tennessee. They just let him go. It's there's a reason teams do that. Whatever the reason is, that's not a good sign. And I just don't know if I can trust him long term. Is he going to get some volume this year? Yes, probably. But I mean, Jared Goff, if we're just looking at this year, it's still Jared Goff throwing the ball. So it's I mean, that's not a positive. So I would prefer the wide receiver who is closer to the line of scrimmage, I guess. So Amon-Ra would be my choice. And maybe he ends up becoming something. I mean, it's a hard year to judge these wide receivers. There's literally no wide receivers on the team. And so can you really I mean, if I'm going to give anyone the benefit of the doubt, it's a rookie. And so I guess that's my answer. Am I excited for him? I mean, not until there's 2 other wide receivers out there and he shows that he's getting targets as well. I mean, if I have him on my roster, I'm not cutting him. That's, through the off season until maybe I have to make a difficult decision when cuts happen. But he's a guy that I'm a little bit more happy to have on my roster.
Well, there you go. We got 2 Amon-Ra St. Browns and 1. Please don't make me pick either one of these guys. So there you go. And the results. Now there was a C results answer as well, which got 9%. So it could be a little bit skewed, but Amon-Ra just barely 46% to 45%. So obviously the people are very split on this, and it should be fun to see what happens with that team and how they decide to rebuild and what they do in the draft and free agency. So here we go. We wanted to keep all of our Javonte talk for now because we got a Javonte tweet. This is from Jared Evans at PFF_Jared. Javonte Williams had 102 rushing yards. 83 of them were after contact. Ooh, that is very, very, very nice. So
Sexy.
Hey, listen, all of my Javonte shares are rejoicing together in just a glorious song. So here's the question: where do you think he will be drafted among running backs next year? Because obviously, after that game, you get a million joke RB1, dynasty RB1, which obviously is not the case. But everybody likes to make that joke as soon as somebody has a big game. But I feel like he has to be kind of high. So Drew, you have it up, right? You have the page up here. We're gonna play a little game here. We're gonna play a little game. Now, Javonte is RB14, correct, Drew?
Yeah, as of November, ADP for running backs from DLF and Superflex.
Perfect. So obviously this is before the big game, but who comes in right ahead of him? Who comes in at RB13?
Your very own Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay, well let's stop that noise. Javonte is going to be taken ahead. Why don't we jump to like RB10?
Somebody that the Timeline duo has in the OG Listener League, one Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, he's been hot. He has been hot. But I got the feeling that when we start doing our startups, Javonte is going to go ahead of him. Do you guys agree with that? Disagree with that?
Agree.
Yep.
All right. Let's bump it up to 8. So we're already at like top 8 here.
Well, just give us 9 and 8. Just real,
Number 9 is Saquon Barkley.
Okay, I think Javonte goes ahead of him unless Saquon ends with like 4 Saquon games.
He's got to be vintage.
Yeah, he's got to be Saquon when people were, spending 4 firsts to get him. Saquon for us to even have this conversation. Who's the next one on the list?
Nick Chubb.
Huh. Okay.
I think he'll go over Chubb just because of the age.
Yeah, give me the young stud.
I think so too, but I think that could be a very interesting conversation and maybe one that we have at one point. I think Short Logic here is talking about Zeke. He's been running on a broken leg. I mean, listen, he ain't getting no younger. I'm gonna put it to you that way. And the way that Dallas has used him over the past forever seasons is we're gonna make him run the ball 300 times a year. So I mean, Tony Pollard has been alleviating some of that, and he's still getting hurt. So I can't believe that we're going to be questioning. So it looks like we're at least top 8 with Javonte. And really the only way Javonte can lose this momentum is if Melvin Gordon is out, which I think he's actually supposed to come back and play this week. But if he's out another couple games and Javonte is just trash, maybe he loses some of that momentum. But we've been looking at the games with Melvin Gordon and just being like, wow, he is still really good, even with pretty much being in a 50-50 time. I mean, I think it's almost 50-50 between the two.
Yeah.
And you still love what you're getting out of him for only getting 50% of the touches in the backfield. And then we see the one game when he's, all by himself and we're just like, whew. So
yeah, that's definitely the more impressive to me because, when you're playing 50-50, you're just so fresh, right? Yeah. But like this is one where like he could have broken down as the game got later and he didn't. And I mean, granted, his touches for the season have been limited because of Melvin, but what's 7 and 6, Drew?
You have Austin Eckler at 7 and Dalvin Cook at 6, which again, based on age,
I could see people taking him. And then what? McCaffrey's 5, I think. Is that correct?
according to November, McCaffrey is 2 still, which does not sound right or does not feel right to me.
Well, it makes sense because he had been back for a little bit. He wasn't on the IR for the rest of the season. That happened in December. So I can kind of see he had a couple of games. I can kind of see why it was 2. December, obviously, will be a lot more interesting because I think CMC will drop quite a few spots after.
What are the top 5?
Yeah, JT, which is a no-brainer at 1.
Yeah.
CMC, Najee, Kamara, and Swift. And I think for me, he slots in probably top 5, top 4 right after JT. I'd want Swift next, probably. I could flip a coin between Swift and Javonte at this point, and then Najee after that.
So you have Javonte ahead of Najee? You personally?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
Personally, I do.
Okay, cool.
I would rather.
Cool.
It's a personal preference thing. I've seen people tweet about it this week, and a lot of people have said it. There's no wrong answer either way, which I agree with on paper. If they're both sitting there looking at me, at the top of the second round or middle of the second round, I'll take Javonte just because I have an affinity for him. Najee's had a great year, great usage, so I could definitely see people being on board with that. Playing at a bigger program, Alabama had success there, but for me, it would go JT, and I could flip a coin. I love Swift as well. I would really struggle with that. That's where I'd want to have an 8-hour clock for my draft if I had to pick between Swift and Javonte, and then Najee at 4 probably.
Yeah, it is going to be fun to see where Javonte goes, especially if Melvin Gordon is out for one more game and he can put together another game like this. I mean, God, Denver could be so dangerous if they just got a quarterback. Like, they're in the playoff hunt. I see what you did there.
What?
Yeah, I mean, they could do a lot of damage all over the NFL, not just in the AFC, all over the NFL. They're like, I think they're either in the last playoff spot or they're one game out of a playoff spot with Teddy Bridgewater. Like, that shows how much talent they have, that Teddy Bridgewater, who's a fine, okay, average quarterback, has them. He's average. He's not special in any way, but he's good enough to win games in the NFL. Like, if they got Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson, oh my goodness, it could be a fun team to watch. So I can't wait to see when we do our startups after the season's over, where we see people taking Javonte, and I'm sure there'll be a couple of people who will lose their minds and take him, as the first running back off the board just to be different. But JT is that dude. I will never disparage the great name of Jonathan Taylor. But
who has JT in the OG league?
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, I mean, he brought sexy back. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Who does have Jonathan Taylor in the OG league? Drew wants to know. He's asking for a friend. Oh,
that'd be us.
Thanks,
Drew. You're getting in on the action.
Did we make any bad picks? I don't think we did. Not one. Not one bad pick did we make.
I mean, we didn't pick any quarterbacks, but thankfully Garoppolo has been playing all year.
Hey, I wanted to take Taylor Heineke. I just want to throw that out there.
Oh, you did.
I wanted to take him.
So yes, we made a bad pick.
Well, who'd you take instead of him?
Who did we take?
No, we were arguing between this is how late in the draft.
Haskins and him.
Haskins and
Brandon. Okay, yeah, it doesn't matter.
So
we
just
screwed up.
We
didn't take either.
We didn't take either. We went in another direction because Bill and I say this all the time. Bill and I will fight about the most meaningless players in fantasy football.
Yeah, even on the show we do.
But that's what I'm saying. You and I, just in general, we will be like, oh, Jonathan Taylor, obviously a good player. Stephon Diggs, obviously a good player. But
you
Taylor
get down
Heineke,
to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, Taylor Heineke and
I will admit
Haskins,
I was wrong in that one.
it is a knockdown, drag out fight that neither one of us are willing to back. And it's just so funny.
We're like, all right, F it. Let's just take,
I don't even know who
John Ross.
Yeah, that's probably what we ended up.
I mean, that's not what we did. But.
Well, we didn't take John Ross, but we probably took someone equally inconsequential. But
yes, indeed.
That's how late in the draft we were, where Dwayne Haskins was actually a name being talked about. So you understand at that point what the deal was. But
yeah, I'm mad at myself.
It's okay.
You guys probably picked like the 404 or something at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably in the 17th.
Oh, it was
round.
it was like 18th round or something.
Yeah, I mean, we were deep in the weeds where we were just like, one of these two random quarterbacks could be a thing. But all right, let's hit this next one here from Xander at Karam Xander. Would you trade Hurts straight up for Trevor Lawrence in a Superflex Dynasty League? I thought this was a very interesting question because obviously Jalen Hurts is the current hotness. T-Law was the hotness going into the season. So my answer is, am I trading Hurts for Lawrence? If I'm not contending, yeah, like let's
What
go.
if you're contending?
I would have to be like a top 3 team. I'm not even talking about like I'm the 6th seed. I'll probably sneak into the playoffs. I got to be like a top 3 team to not make that deal, because as much as, there was a lot of hype a few weeks ago about, the Eagles could take the NFC East and they could be a playoff team. And I said, yeah, there's some teams on that schedule. I said the Giants, it's a divisional game. Those are always weird. They have 2 against Washington. Those are always weird. Like, it might not be as easy as it looks on paper. And now Washington is the hot team going into that game. The Eagles stuttered against the Giants. Did well against the Jets, but they're the Jets. So, yeah, like but I'm doing it. I mean, I don't know if Hurts is the starter next year. And I'm not saying he should or he shouldn't, because you say that and a lot of people go, well, what has he done to not be this? And I go, you're talking fantasy. I'm talking, like, this is just what's being said in the area. Like, if they're not good, if they end up, maybe only winning 1 out of their last 4 games, they may not have Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback. They have 3 first-round picks, and 2 of them look like they're probably going to be high. Like, they may take somebody. They may trade those picks to get Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers or, whoever else is there. So, yeah. What do you guys think? I've talked long enough about this trade scenario.
Yes.
Yep.
There you go.
Like,
so
it's just like, I mean, we're looking at it like a snapshot of a moment, right? Like, so at this moment, who would I prefer to win me a game this week? Well, the answer is Jalen Hurts. But like, this is Dynasty. We got to look long term. And Hurts, I think, in all likelihood, it's probably this year and next year max for him, unless he like vastly improves. So, and that's, you're banking on something that doesn't happen often.
Josh Allen.
I mean, he's the outlier, right? Like, and he's exactly what came into my mind when I made that comment, because like, there's not a lot of guys that you go from like an inaccurate quarterback to all of a sudden looking the part, and Josh Allen's one of them. And I mean, nothing against Hurts, and I think he's a hard worker. I think all of that, but like, I question if at the NFL level he's going to be able to improve that much. And so, like, I'm going to take the number 1 pick, who was, QB, like, golden boy, for the last 5 years, and just bank on it. Now, does he ever end up becoming who we hope he'll be? Maybe not, but I mean, I feel pretty comfortable saying he's going to be a QB1 in the NFL for a while. Like, so, I mean, worst case, he's a top 15 quarterback, I think, in my mind at least, because of his legs. And I'm okay with that. So I would much rather take that because I know I'm going to have him for 10 years. Or at least I believe I'm going to have him for 10 years.
Yeah, and I gotta believe, and I know it's Jacksonville, they can do just about anything and all of it can be bad. But I have to believe they're going to improve the weapons, the pass catching weapons in Jacksonville. I mean,
Coaching.
they haven't been good this year. The most talented guy that Trevor Lawrence has played with all season has probably been Dan Arnold, and that's saying something.
Marvin Jones.
I believe that Marvin Jones is talented, but man, this offense has.
Do you like my gorilla
for
comments?
the old guys?
And I love Marvin Jones, but man, he has just not been used really. It's not even to say he's not good, but he hasn't been used in this offense, which weird flex, but okay. So I gotta believe things will get better in Jacksonville, and T-Law is the better player. So we got short logic here. Visca in year 3. Short logic. Can I just take a look into the future? Hold on. Okay. You're going to be saying Visca in year 4, and you're going to be saying Visca in year 5, and you're going to be saying Visca in year 6, and you're going to keep saying it till he's out of the league, and you're going to go, what the hell happened to Visca? So
no, you're going to see him bounce around like Cordero Patterson. And then, like, when he's 28 or 29,
year 7 breakout, baby.
Yes, exactly. And then you're gonna be like, I knew it.
Boy,
yeah, you got to go with the draft capital there. I mean, Lawrence is going to have more time to show what he's got. They've invested so much in him. He's proven he's not a Ryan Leaf or a Jamarcus Russell at this point, which is good for him. That bar is super low. He seems like he's got his head on straight, and he's gonna be a professional at his craft. And like Bill said, get a new coach in there, which again, maybe it's the ownership, I don't know, but you think that the guy like that is gonna be able to make something decent out of it. And if at worst he's a Kirk Cousins, is that you could do a lot worse than getting the next version of Kirk Cousins in Dynasty.
I mean, dude who's a top 12 quarterback every year, I'll take that guy. I mean, that's what Kirk Cousins is. We don't have to like him for real NFL, but he's a top 12 fantasy dude every year. So, I mean, I'll take that guy.
That's the other thing too, Josh. You mentioned it earlier. People getting mixing up or conflating Dynasty or fantasy and reality. You have to be able to do it in reality in order to make an impact in fantasy. There's only so long. You look at a guy like Blake Bortles, great. For those of you who rode him for the 2 years that he could be a garbage time king, good for you. If you sold on time, good for you. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to make a real on-field impact in order to make any kind of a dynasty impact for us here. So, I love what Hurts has done. I loved seeing him make the transfer, do what was right for him, have an epic season at Oklahoma. And, but at the end of the day, he was still a 3rd-round pick, which tells you something. 2nd-round pick. So, versus there's a huge chasm between where he was drafted and the 101, regardless of the draft class. And, maybe Trevor Lawrence doesn't become the next best thing to Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning or something like that, but he will be a solid quarterback for a while to come. And he will be at the very worst a QB2 while you sort out who your next big time QB1 is, if that's what you're going to do with your draft picks in the future.
I like it.
Tua or Trevor Lawrence?
That's it. I mean, I love, I spoke up for Tua during the offseason, but it's Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I know Tua has kind of looked good the last couple weeks.
Drew doesn't agree.
But I don't. I would take Tua at this point. Guy who's been in the league a year longer. And it sounds funny to say, but I think the Dolphins have made better moves overall, and they look like they're doing better as an organization over the last 2 or 3 years.
Ooh, Ooh, that might be a 2022 bet between Drew and I. Tua versus T-Law, because like I said, I love me some Tua, but I think we might need to pump the brakes on Tua or T-Law. But I like it. Hey, I like it. So later after the season is done, we'll have to try to figure out some off-season bets.
I want to know what Lindsay Kennedy thinks. I'm doing whatever she says.
Listen, Lindsay, I don't care what you say. It's T-Law all day. But I know she'll say T-Law, so that's the only reason why I'm talking smack right now. But
I don't know.
Hey, listen, that girl wins, and it's because she has an eye for talent. She knows T-Law is the talent. So I know she'll have my back on this one. But just a funny one to get us out here on a laugh. Not our boy. I just felt like saying it. Jameis Winston was injured in week 8. That was a lot of weeks ago. A lot of things have happened in the NFL since week 8. He has more TD passes, 14 touchdown passes. He's got more than the guy we just talked about, Jalen Hurts. All right? More than Jalen Hurts. More than Bill. I gotta give you one punch in the stomach on the way out.
Really? Like, I've been saying this for the whole year.
A lot of we've been giving the Lions a lot of love, so I gotta give you one punch on the way out. But more than Jared Goff with 13, more than Baker Mayfield, who is literally the definition of the walking dead this year, with 11, and Daniel Jones with 10.
Also, more than Drew Lack.
A lot of people got more. I think I might have more touchdown passes than Drew Lock. But hey, he's got more than another guy we just talked about, Tua. So that's another guy more than T-Law. We were just talking about him.
He is 10,
as well. I mean, man, if we would have said at the beginning of the season, I know it's the New Orleans offense and it's Jameis who don't care, but apparently he got LASIK to help the eyesight out and everything. If we said he would have had more touchdown passes than Trevor Lawrence and Tua, we might have been like, maybe not. And all of those guys have a 5-week head start on him, and he's still got more touchdown passes than those guys. So I mean, that is just an amazing stat. What, like, does this stat maybe we try to float some thirds out there to see if maybe somebody just doesn't want to deal with Jameis anymore and just try to see, we don't know if he's going to be re-signed. I mean, I almost got to believe he has to be re-signed because we saw the Taysom Hill experience, and for fantasy it wasn't too bad because he ran for a bunch of yards, but when you throw 4 interceptions that were caught, and I actually tweeted this, people were like, oh my god, he threw 4 interceptions, it's crazy. In the first half, Trayvon Diggs dropped 2 more interceptions. Like that's what we don't even, I mean, they hit him in the hands and he did not come up with them. So it could have been 6 interceptions. I mean, it should have been. I don't care if you play cornerback or not. If it hits you in the hands, that should be yours. But 4 interceptions, just nothing going on in the passing game until Dallas decided in the fourth quarter they just weren't going to play defense anymore, and they were just letting people, 70-yard touchdown passes and all that. But I can't believe it's going to be Taysom Hill in 2022. I mean, do you guys think it's going to be Taysom Hill in 2022?
No.
It can't be, right? Like, I mean,
sorry, Sonny.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Taysom that comes out there and he's the gadget guy and he's the running back sometimes and he's a wide receiver sometimes and he's a tight end sometimes, but that guy under center for 30 to 35 pass attempts, like I don't want that dude. And I said that last year and people were kind of like, well, he's good and he won games, and I said, yeah, but we're kind of seeing with Taysom. Those were maybe the highs of Taysom, and we saw the lows of Taysom. And God, you don't want those kind of lows on your team. So I gotta believe it's gonna be Jameis. They sign him to a contract. They say, hey, you got us 14 touchdowns in 8 weeks. Let's see if we can get 30 in a 17-game season, and maybe reconfigure that wide receiver room because they're another team with a bunch of bad wide receivers. So
yeah, if I get him for a third, I'm absolutely taking him. If I have him, I'm not giving him up for a third, though. I'll wait and see.
I've been thinking that I want to float a third in some leagues for Jameis just to see what the hell happens. And worst case scenario, he signs somewhere else as a backup. You lost a third round pick. Who cares? And maybe that guy gets injured and you see Jameis anyway for a few weeks and he does what Jameis does and just throws it all over the field, not caring about double coverage or man or zone or any kind of defense really, and just doing his thing. So it's just been something interesting I've been thinking about doing in some leagues because I'm sure there's some people who are just like, man, all right, he's injured. He was supposed to be the dude. And they, you forget a lot of times about the early season success when a guy gets injured. You just remember all the zeros because he's sitting on your IR, not doing anything for your team. So I might be knocking on some doors in some leagues and seeing if anybody wants to give up old Jameis for a third there. So
yeah, if you have a team in your league where he's the QB 4 or 5 or something like that, go for it.
There you go. So all right, so we're out of here. Thank you to the chat. Short Logic was hitting us up even after we had after just disgraced his Minnesota Vikings. He's still stuck with us, so appreciate you. Appreciate everybody who was in and out watching us on YouTube. If you were doing that, make sure you hit the bell. Make sure you hit subscribe so that you can see us whenever we come on. If you're doing the podcast thing, listening to us there, thank you as well. If you just tripped and fell on us, hit subscribe so you keep getting this every week. Make sure you rate and review. It helps us out, helps us get in front of people, and sometimes you guys are pretty funny in those reviews. So we like to see them. And on that note, Bill, we out of here.
Later.